Hello. So today I will be teaching the rules of chess and how to set up a chessboard and the point of chess. So on a board it's 64 squares. You must make sure that whenever you set up the board that a white square is on the bottom right. Just remember white on right. So in other words, if the board was turned like this, you wouldn't want to set that up because the square is dark color. So white on right when you set it up. Next we're going to show how to set up the pieces. It's fairly easy. Pawns go on the second rank. And I'm setting just white up on this side for make it easier. Alright. Next, in the corners of the board are the rooks. Then the knights are next. They're called knights in America. In some countries it's horse. Next are bishops. Most countries actually call bishops elephants. And then this is important to remember that this is a white square and this is the white pieces. The white queen goes on a white square and the black queen goes on a black square. Just remember, queen goes on her own color. So rooks, knights, bishops, king, and queen. Next, how the pieces move. So pawns are actually the most complicated piece because they can move one or two initially. The most common first moves are the king pawn up 2 or the queen pawn up 2. Both of these moves are good moves and they are the most common. You can move just one if you want, but you can also move 2. Now, one thing to note is that when a pawn captures, it actually does not capture the same way it moves. It's the only piece that is different. So it actually captures diagonally. So in this case, if it's white to move, white can take this pawn here. And then we take it off the board. It's not like checkers where you jump over. You just go directly to the square and occupy it. Next, pawns have a special move called en passant, which a lot of players don't even know about, actually. But anybody that's any good at chess will know this rule. So, let's say I moved here, I moved my pawn 2, and black moves his pawn up 2. And I move my pawn again, which is a strange move, but just for the point of understanding. Obviously, if you moved here, I can take this pawn. But also, if you do the 2 moves that I just told you about, you can take en passant, which is French for in passing. There's a reason that this rule was invented, but I won't get into that. So the next thing I'm going to go over are the knights. The knights. Actually, I should cover about pawn promotion. So if a pawn ever gets to the end, you can get another piece. Any piece you want. Usually you want a queen because the queen happens to be the strongest piece, but you cannot get a king because the object of the game is to capture the king. You can't have more than one. But you could have, theoretically, because there's 8 pawns and 1 queen, hypothetically you could have 9 queens. So the next piece I'd like to go over is the knight. And the knight goes like this. It goes in a 2x3 rectangle, or it kind of looks like an L. And the knights are pretty valuable pieces. That's it about knights. They capture the same way they move. Nothing special. It's also the only piece that can go over other pieces. So my first move doesn't have to be a pawn move. I could actually do this on my first move, or this. Now, the bishop, it only moves diagonally. So if my pawn is here, for example, I could move all the way up as far as I wanted. So I can move it to this square if it was my move here. So like this. It could go as far as here, but you wouldn't want to go there because I could be captured by the pawn or the knight. Now the queen, it actually, let me get to the queen last actually. The rook moves laterally, so it just goes straight any direction, as many squares as it can, and like this could happen, you know. And then last, the queen is like a bishop and rook together. It's the strongest piece, so it can move laterally and diagonally. And one easy way to remember how a bishop moves is it will like this bishop will always be in a light square, since it only moves diagonally. Like I could go here or whatever. This will never become a dark square bishop. Likewise, this will never be a light squared bishop. And now I want to teach you a special rule called castling. If there's nothing between the king and the rook, if the king has not moved previously, if this rook has not moved previously, and you're not in check, I'll get to in a second, but you can move the king 2 spaces, and then the rook lands on the spot the king crossed. Now the king normally just moves 1 space at a time, but in this case, in any direction, including diagonally, but in this case, he can go 2 spaces. And the point of this is to get your king away from the center of the board, and also to activate your rook. And you want to try and castle early, usually. That's usually a good thing. Also, you can castle queenside. Looks like this. So, those are how the pieces move. Now, again, the point of the game, though, is to capture the king. Not to take the pieces, but to capture the king. So actually, the quickest checkmate... Oh yeah, let me explain check. I somehow forgot to do that. So let's say I played d4 and e6 is played. Those are like d4 and e6. So let's say these moves are played. And I play knight f3. Now, black can do something called check. Now, notice that the bishop is attacking the king diagonally. Now, when in check, you must get out of check. You cannot leave your king in danger. It is against the rules. So, normally, if I had an escape square, like let's say this pawn had been moved up earlier, I could go here if I wanted. But you don't want to do that, because remember, you can't castle if you've moved your king. So in this kind of position, if this is the position, I would probably just play c3. That way the bishop would have to retreat, and it probably doesn't want to trade itself off for a lousy pawn. I could also block with a knight here, or I could even retreat this one, or I could play bishop d2, or I could technically play queen d2, but that would be suicidal because I like my queen. So checkmate is whenever you're in check, but you can't get out of check. For example, let's say there's a knight on e5 and a bishop on c4. Let's say that this is a position in the game. And this pawn is captured. You'll notice that the black king, I know it's a little dark, but the black king is in check by the bishop and cannot get out of check. And now this is a draw, or this is where white has won because he's in checkmate. Can't take the bishop, he'd be in check, so that's it. And finally, you can get a draw in chess by offering a draw to your opponent at any time. And you can also get a draw by doing something called stalemate. Stalemate is not a very, it doesn't happen very often, but it can. But let's say that this is the position here, where I got the pieces are like this, and it's black to move here. And remember, if it was my move, I couldn't go here because I'd be moving into check by that king, so it's against the rules to go there. I could only